Hello, everyone, and in the wake of what was a multi-bombshell testimony from Michael Cohen, we have the best person on hand to recap all the action for you. We're going to be taking a look at everything of importance Michael Cohen uttered during that incredibly long 7-hour testimony, what it means for Trump, the Russia investigation, and his seemingly 16 other different investigations he has ahead of him. And of course, if anything else happens major, because why wouldn't it here in the year 2019, we will have that for you as well. Yeah, so recapping this investigation where, among other things, Trump was accused of lying, criminality, and even racism by his former attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen. And joining me now, of course, to discuss it is Glenn Bradford. And I'm so glad to have him back here on Newsflash.
Hi, Spencer. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
Good.
All right, yeah. So President Trump's longtime lawyer and fixer obviously took the stand today. The big testimony that really everyone was waiting for. He represented Trump for a decade, from 2007 to 2017 or so. Told Congress that the president lied to the American public about business interests in Russia during the 2016 campaign and lied to reporters about stolen Democratic emails. Trump also told Cohen to lie about illegal hush money payments to cover up his mistresses. The lawyer charged. So, first of all, we can just talk about like what these and how these allegations kind of played out. There's a pretty incredible atmosphere. Day-long hearing before the House Oversight and Reform Committee, and they really exposed the dark underside of Trump's business and political worlds that really no one else could have provided, other than the guy who worked with him, helped him out with all his personal problems, was his guy for many years in Michael Cohen. So it all kind of registers, everything he said in these 7 hours of testimony really kind of hinges on one thing. Is he credible? And that's something that Republicans brought up a lot of times during this congressional hearing, because, of course, he has lied to Congress at the behest of Trump. Things are different now. He's now flipped on Trump and will, or at least in the Democrats' mind, provide accurate testimony from here on out, because the stakes for him lying would be obviously incredibly high. So personally, I would assume I would probably go to the side of saying, honestly, in my heart of hearts, that he told the truth today. What about you, Glenn?
I think so too, especially the things he mentioned in his opening statement. I have to believe that those are true. Just the one thing that I think he maybe not was completely honest about today was his desire to have a job in the White House.
Yeah.
He got a question where I think it was the minority leader, Jordan, pressed him on the fact that he was kind of going against Trump now because he was mad at him because he didn't get a White House position. And and Cohen said he was perfectly happy without one. He didn't seek one. He didn't want one. And from reporting I've heard that really isn't the case. But I don't think this is a very important lie.
Yeah.
But I think otherwise, on the main points, I do believe him, and he certainly brought in enough evidence to back up what he said on the important stuff.
Yeah, and you really never know. I mean, he could have honestly convinced himself that, well, I really didn't want a White House job, didn't I? I was fine without one, wasn't I? And just kind of backed himself up into believing that. But really, all evidence kind of suggests that he was, at the time, in the running, or wanted to have a White House job. So, yeah, that was, again, small thing in the grand scheme of things. But to mention that really incredible opening statement saying where Cohen said he's a racist, a con man, and a cheat. He says, I am not protecting Mr. Trump anymore. But it remained unclear whether his testimony would change the political dynamics of a series of scandals now that have already polarized Washington and the country, and that could lead to an impeachment battle later this year. So, yeah, what do you think in the grand scheme of things? What does this do? How does it really complement the Mueller report? What impact does it have? Does it kind of help Mueller, or does it kind of supplement Mueller? What do you think?
Well, you figure that some of this stuff is going to come out when the Mueller report comes out as well. But hearing somebody say it out loud is different from reading it in the newspapers. And I think a lot of Americans who um, believe Trump or like Trump might be second guessing themselves a little bit right now, and wondering what kind of president we really have. Um, but it's hard to know. Trump's support hasn't really tanked. He hasn't really gone much below 35%. He's been within the 35-45% range his entire presidency, which is pretty unique among presidents. If you look at the graph of his approval rating, it's pretty smooth. It really doesn't go up and down dramatically. If you look at other presidents, that's what it does do. So there's something pretty peculiar about the political environment we're in. Um, and his supporters don't seem to be abandoning him. He still has something like an 89% approval rating with Republicans, which I find that astonishing. But I think for independents who are kind of on the fence still about Trump, maybe that swayed them if they saw today's testimony, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. And then one of the probably the big things that Cohen tried to or Cohen had to really face is some pretty strong attacks from Republicans who they really tried to paint Cohen as a proven liar, which I mean he was. The Republicans announced the hearing as a charade and, quote, an embarrassment for our country. Unquote, Democrats said Republicans ran away from the truth as they sought to defend the corrupt president who employed textbook mob tactics. That was kind of the warring of words. And there were some pretty remarkable points here at the hearing where one of them actually found Michael Cohen saying to Jim Jordan, the ranking member, shame on you for trying to kind of cast aspersions on why he wanted, why Trump or Cohen was calling out Trump in this way is because he didn't get a White House job, as you mentioned before. But probably the big thing was, and the people were saying this before the testimony started, was the goal for the Republicans was to get Michael Cohen to come off and look like a crazy person and think like put the idea in the mind of the people. This guy's just a crazy, like New York mobster guy. He's a little bit wacko. He'd do anything just to protect himself. And what I was wondering, did you think that they were particularly successful in doing that? Because I didn't really see any really resonating points.
Yeah, none that I saw. I mean, I didn't see the entire testimony, but the attacks that I did see from the Republican side, sometimes they seemed to unnerve him a little bit, but he never really lost it. I really think they were trying to get him into a shouting match or something like that. And he held his cool pretty well. And I think we all know from press reports that Michael Cohen does have a temper.
Yeah.
And I think he held it together reasonably well. I think at one point Cohen made a point to one of the Republicans who was questioning him how neither he nor any of his colleagues were asking about anything about the president. It was all about himself, and this wasn't what he came to testify about. The important thing is not him so much as what kind of president we have, and I think that was a good point. Although I think the Republicans really didn't have much choice in the matter here. They couldn't really push back on Cohen's testimony about the president. So they went after him instead.
Yeah, so it was really hard to kind of come out and just disprove that right away, as you say, and that's kind of probably the most effective point is, and I really don't see how that's going to really make a divot in people's minds. Sure, they might say, oh, well, Cohen's a proven liar, but that's more likely to come out of your mouth if you're a Trump supporter, whereas if you're a Trump hater, you could say that, well, he has no reason to lie, and he's just going to go into jail for a longer time than 3 years if he does lie. So that's, again, the kind of impasse that's reached by the two political sides.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so that's the drawbridge there at the moment. So interesting quote here saying, "Sitting here today, it seems unbelievable that I was so mesmerized by Donald Trump that I was willing to do the things for him that I knew were absolutely wrong. When he met Trump, he knew him as a real estate giant, an icon, and at the center of action. Being around Trump was intoxicating." And I mean, I guess you could kind of sort of see that, but after 10 years of being at Mr. Trump's side through the thick and thin, just for everything. And now he decides to come away as he's handed a prison sentence. That can look very suspicious to a lot of people. Like he's just abandoning ship for his own sake. And do you think Cohen was able to kind of make a convincing explanation of why he was needed to come out against Trump at this particular time?
Not really. He didn't really get into that too much, and he didn't really explain, as some of the Republicans who questioned him about why they stuck by Trump, why he stuck by Trump for so long, for 10 years, when he knew pretty early on what the kind of man he was. And Cohen really had no response for that. I have a feeling that the only reason Cohen really turned on the president is because the president really turned on him. He didn't really support him. He feared him. Unlike, for example, the way he treated Manafort the entire time.
Yeah.
Even Flynn, for that matter. He really didn't say much about Flynn, but I think that he may have gotten word from maybe some insiders that Cohen was starting to get shaky, but I think that it was quite a revelation to Cohen when he realized that the president was not loyal to him like he was to Trump.
Yeah, I mean, if you devote 10 years of your life to being just absolutely loyal to a guy, and for example, as he said, I'm proud to be known as the guy who my friends can call at 3 a.m. if they ever need anything. I saw that from his opening statement. I was like, yeah, that just shows you kind of the guy he is. Like, the things he values is just loyalty. And if Trump comes in and says, oh, well, you're not getting a White House job, don't think you're very shaky, I think you're a little bit shaky. And, I mean, you can only imagine what that does to a guy who values that so much and has spent so much time being very, pretty incredibly loyal. Cohen said he'd come to realize he sacrificed his own ethics and now is seeking redemption for his own misdeeds. And again, I mean, this may seem a lot of really obvious to people, but again, it is what he said, saying, "I've lost it all." And the more people that follow Trump as I did so blindly are going to suffer the same consequences that I'm suffering. So pretty woeful there tone from Cohen. The president's re-election campaign organization dismissed Cohen as a convicted perjurer who should not be believed. This is the same Michael Cohen has admitted that he lied to Congress previously. Why did they even bother to swear him in this time? Says Kayleigh McEnany, the campaign's national press secretary. All right. Yeah, and that is, again, the big question here. And we're gonna kind of go through some of the bigger details in this moment, but he said, obviously, yeah. Well, let's go into some of the big details of it. So, he said, let's see here. He offered some details about the Stormy Daniels interaction, the Stormy Daniels payments. He implicated the president's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., and the chief financial officer of Trump's company, Alan Weisselberg. The name came up quite a lot in the arrangement of those payments. Cohen also said that people around the president were involved in persuading Cohen to change the date he gave about the discussions for a Moscow-based Trump Tower project ended during the 2016 presidential campaign, an assertion that the president's lawyer, Jay Sekulow, said was completely false. So those are just some of the big things. All right, so the president faces peril from the Russia situation after the testimony. It did not. Cohen's testimony did not provide conclusive proof that that Trump ball game completely colluded with Russia, but he did